Jury duty arrives like most things that change your life. Without warning. Without drama. A letter in the mail on a Tuesday that you almost throw away because the envelope looks like a bill and you are already behind on the bills, and one more piece of paper demanding something from you feels like more than the morning can hold. You report on a Thursday. Sit in a waiting room with 40 other people who have the same expression, the specific resignation of people whose time is being used by a system that does not ask whether the time is available. You fill out a form. You wait. Your name is called. You answer questions from two lawyers who study you the way people study something they are deciding whether to purchase. You answer honestly. This is your first mistake. You are seated as Juror 7. The case is a murder trial. A man named Daniel Morrow is accused of killing his business partner outside a restaurant in the financial district on a Thursday night in October. The prosecution has security footage, partial, a witness who saw a figure matching Morrow's description near the scene, and a financial motive built from 18 months of a failing partnership. The defense has an alibi that is almost good enough and a very expensive suit. The trial takes 9 days. You listen to every word. You watch every witness. You take notes in a small notebook you bought from the court vending machine in precise handwriting, because precision is how you process things, and this feels like something that requires processing carefully. On the 9th day you file into the jury room with 11 other people to decide whether Daniel Morrow is guilty. You sit down. You look around the table. And in the chair directly to your left, 3 feet from where you are sitting, is the man who actually committed the murder. You recognize him on a Tuesday. The 4th day of deliberations. Chapter 1. What you saw that night. You have not told anyone what you saw. Not the police when they canvassed your street the following week. Not your wife when she mentioned the case on the news 3 months later. Not the court during voir dire when they asked whether you had any knowledge of the case or the parties involved. You said no. You looked the defense attorney in the eye and said no, and the defense attorney moved to the next question, and you were seated as Juror 7, and the trial began. What you saw on that Thursday night in October was this. You were walking back from a work dinner. Late. The restaurant district. Quieter than it would have been an hour earlier. You cut through a side street because the main road was backed up with a delivery truck, and you knew the side street came out 2 blocks from the parking garage where your car was waiting. Halfway down the side street you heard voices. 2 men. Elevated. Not quite shouting. The specific register of an argument that has been ongoing long enough to abandon its indoor volume. You slowed. Not out of curiosity. Out of the instinct that tells you when a space ahead of you has changed its character. One man was taller. Dark jacket. His back was to you. The other man was facing your direction but not looking at you, focused entirely on the argument, on the taller man, on whatever was being said between them that had brought the volume to this level on a side street at 11 at night. Then the taller man moved. It was fast. Decisive. The kind of movement that contains no hesitation because the decision behind it was made before the movement began. The second man went down. The taller man stood over him for 3 seconds. Then he turned and walked quickly in the opposite direction, away from you, into the darker end of the street. You stood there. You did not approach. You did not call out. You looked at the figure on the ground and understood what you were looking at, and your body made a decision before your mind had finished processing the situation. You walked. Quickly. Out of the side street and into the main road and to your car and home. You told yourself you had not seen it clearly. You told yourself someone else would call. You told yourself these things all the way home and through the week that followed and through the 3 months before the trial and through 9 days of testimony and into the jury room. The man with the dark jacket. The decisive movement. The 3 seconds standing over the body. On the 4th day of deliberations, he makes a specific gesture with his left hand while making a point about the timeline. A dismissive downward movement, 2 fingers extended, the same gesture the taller man made on the side street the moment before everything happened. Your notebook falls off the table. You pick it up. Your hands are not steady. Chapter 2, The Jury Room. His name is Philip Garrett. You know this because 9 days of sitting in the same room produces a specific involuntary familiarity, name tags on the first day, assigned seats, the domestic proximity of people placed together by a system indifferent to whether they belong together. Philip Garrett is 44. He works in commercial real estate. He has a daughter whose photograph he showed the jury foreperson on day 2 of deliberations in the context of a conversation about how long the process might take. He is organized and measured, and his contributions to the deliberations are precise and reasonable, and he has not once, in 4 days of discussion, expressed a view on the guilt of Daniel Morrow that could not be defended on purely evidentiary grounds. He is also the man from the side street. You become more certain of this across the 4th day and into the 5th. The height is right. The build is right. The jacket he wore on the first day of trial before the weather changed is the right dark color. The gesture confirms the posture, which confirms the movement, which confirms what you have been telling yourself for 7 months you did not see clearly enough to be certain of. You are certain. You sit across the table from Daniel Morrow's fate and next to the man responsible for it, and you take notes in your precise handwriting, and you watch Philip Garrett make reasonable evidentiary arguments for reasonable evidentiary conclusions, and you think about what it means that a man can walk from a side street into 7 months of ordinary life and into a jury room and sit in judgment of the wrong person with the specific composure of someone who has made their peace with the distance between what they did and what anyone can prove. On the 5th day, the foreperson calls a vote. 9-3 for conviction. You are one of the 3. Not because you believe Morrow is innocent. Because you cannot convict a man of a murder you watched someone else commit. The foreperson asks you to share your reasoning. You say the alibi has not been sufficiently discredited. You say this in your precise voice with your precise handwriting in front of you, and Philip Garrett nods slightly in agreement, and the specific horror of that nod, of being agreed with by the man whose guilt is the reason for your dissent, sits in your chest like something that will not move. Chapter 3. What Staying Silent Costs. The deliberations run to a 7th day. The 9 become 10. Then 11. Then you and one other juror named Mrs. Okafor, who has a different reason for her doubt, but whose doubt has the same effect as yours, which is that Daniel Morrow has not been convicted, and the jury room continues, and Philip Garrett continues, and you continue sitting 3 feet from the man whose gesture confirmed what you spent 7 months trying to unconfirm. You think about what speaking means. You have thought about little else since the 4th day. If you tell the foreperson what you saw on the side street, the deliberations stop. You become a witness. The trial collapses. A mistrial. Potentially a new trial. Potentially an investigation into you for withholding information during voir dire. Potentially a conversation with a prosecutor who will want to know why you said no when they asked about prior knowledge, and what you were thinking during 9 days of testimony and 7 days of deliberations, and whether your withholding was innocent omission or something with a different name that carries different consequences. You also think about what Philip Garrett knows. He was in that side street. He turned and walked in the opposite direction. He did not see your face. You are almost certain he did not see your face. But almost certain is not the same as certain, and you have been sitting 3 feet from him for 16 days, and sometimes he looks at you in the specific way that people look at someone they are trying to place, and you look back with a neutral expression of Juror 7, who has no particular connection to any of this, and the looking passes and the deliberations continue. On the 6th night, you call your wife. You tell her deliberations are difficult. She asks if you are all right. You say yes. You say this precisely and without hesitation, the way you have said everything for 7 months that is not true but that occupies the space where truth should be. Chapter 4. The Decision. On the 8th day of deliberations you write a note. You write it during a bathroom break in the precise handwriting you have used in your notebook for 16 days. You address it to the foreperson. You do not describe what you saw on the side street. You do not name Philip Garrett. You write 4 sentences requesting to speak privately with the judge about a matter of personal conscience that is bearing on your ability to continue serving. You fold it twice. You hold it in your pocket for 3 hours. The note changes everything the moment it leaves your hand. You understand this. Before the note, the situation is internal, contained. A private horror with no institutional presence. The moment you pass the note to the court officer standing outside the jury room door, you have initiated something that will produce consequences you cannot fully model and cannot stop once they begin. You think about Daniel Morrow sitting at the defense table in his expensive suit with an alibi that is almost good enough. You think about the side street and the decisive movement and the 3 seconds and the 7 months of silence. You think about Philip Garrett's photograph of his daughter. You think about your wife's voice on the phone asking if you are all right. You pass the note. Chapter 5. What the Side Street Costs. The judge meets with you in her chambers with a court officer present and the door closed. She is a precise woman who listens the way precise people listen, completely, without visible reaction, to the end. You tell her what you saw on the side street. All of it. The time. The location. The height. The jacket. The movement. The 3 seconds. The gesture on the 4th day of deliberations that made your notebook fall off the table. You tell her about voir dire and what you said and why you said it, and what 7 months of saying it has cost you in ways you do not have precise language for. She listens to the end. She is quiet for a moment. Then she begins. The mistrial is declared the following morning. Daniel Morrow walks out of the courthouse with his alibi and his expensive suit and the specific dazed expression of someone who does not entirely understand what just changed or why. Philip Garrett is escorted from the jury room separately. You do not see this happen. You are already in a different room with a prosecutor and 2 detectives who have the focused energy of people who have just received something they did not expect to receive and who are moving quickly to work out what it means. The investigation takes 4 months. The side street security camera that the original investigation missed, angled low, partially obstructed, produces 17 frames that, combined with your testimony and a forensic analysis of Garrett's movements on the night in question, produce an indictment. You testify twice. Your precise handwriting from the jury room notebook is entered as evidence. The notebook you bought from a court vending machine on the first day. You think about that. The specific, ordinary object of it. A notebook from a vending machine that cost $2 and that you filled with careful observations because precision is how you process things. And the precision, extended across 16 days in a room with a man you recognized from a side street, becomes the record that a prosecutor uses to build the case that a mistrial made possible. Daniel Morrow is not retried. There is insufficient independent evidence without the compromised jury process. He knows this. You know this. The side street remains what it was. A Thursday night in October, a figure going down, 3 seconds, a man walking into the dark. What changes is Philip Garrett. What changes is the indictment and the trial and the outcome you will not know for another 8 months. What changes is you. The specific interior change of a person who held something for 7 months and then passed a note and watched everything that the note set into motion move through the world without asking anyone's permission. You drive home the night the mistrial is declared. You park. You sit in the car the way you sat in every difficult moment of the past 7 months, with your hands on the wheel and the engine off and the specific quiet of someone who has done the thing they needed to do and is now sitting with the full weight of having done it. Your wife is awake when you come inside. She asks how you are. You think about precision. You think about the notebook. You think about Juror 7 and what that seat cost and what it ultimately required. You say you will explain everything. You sit down at the kitchen table. You begin.